If you ever wondered why your business rules work perfectly in development but then completely break in production, let me show you a sneaky reason why this happens and a simple fix to it. So this was driving me completely mad last week, and I figured out the reason, and I feel like while it's only going to help a small amount of people, those people will be very grateful that this video exists, because I couldn't find any reasoning for this for happening, but yeah, now I figured it out, so I thought I'd share it with the world. But let's get started with our use case. So we are in our dev environment. Here in the top, you can see that, right? Let's say in this case, we have project tables. So if I come into the tables in the solution here, and then come into projects, you can see that we've got our project table here. Now within this project table, you can see we've got cloud migration, and the customer name that it's relating to, which is relating to our customer table, is Greenleaf Technologies. Now if I go into the production environment, so you can see it here, we've got the exact same project record. So project name is cloud migration, and then customer name is Greenleaf Technologies. So you can see there's no difference between these two records. Now let's say hypothetically I want to add some logic on the project form within my model-driven app, right? So if I open up my app here and I come into projects, which is here, and then I open up cloud migration in this case, let's say I want to add some logic to say if the customer name is Greenleaf Technologies, then I don't want to show an end date, right? Very arbitrary use case, but let's say, for example, this is the one that we want to go with for whatever reason, but this can apply to any logic which uses a lookup field. So because customer name is a lookup field, this is where the problem starts. This is where the impact happens. But let's build out that business rule. So I'm going to come into my project form. So I'm just going to come into forms here, come into my main form and select edit, and then I'm going to go to business rules and then new business rule. Okay, so now that's loaded for me. So let's say the condition is going to be if customer is Greenleaf. You can see I've already got that. We're going to go to entity project. Source is going to be entity, so it's going to be the table. The field is going to be customer name, and then it's going to equal a value. But you can see once I select value, it comes up with this magnifying glass. Now, this is important, so just keep a note of this. But if I click on this and I get a nice list of all of the records within my customer table, or in this case, account means customer, I will select Greenleaf, and you can see now it's got a tick, and then I'll select add. So now I've got this condition working for me. You can see here, customer name equals Greenleaf Technologies. Now I'm going to select apply, and you can see this bit of logic has been saved here in the top. And then let's add our final piece of logic to say if the customer is Greenleaf, then we're going to set a field visibility. This is going to be end date hidden. So we're going to go to end date, and then we're going to say no, apply. And then what we're going to do is copy this business rule, paste it here, end date visible, and then we're going to select yes. So what we've created here is if the customer is Greenleaf, it's going to hide the end date. If it isn't Greenleaf, so it's anyone else, it's going to show the end date within that project form. So now we just want to give this business rule a name. So hide end date if customer is Greenleaf. We won't add a description, but we'll save. And then what we'll do is activate this business rule. We'll select activate, and now we've got the business rule saved. So what I'm going to do is just close out of this. I'm going to select done. You should see the business rule pop up here, which it is. We're just going to save and publish the form. I'm not sure if you actually have to do this, but I always like to do it just as a measure to make sure it actually works. And then now that's saved and published, what we're going to do is go into the app, do a Control F5, and what you should see is the end date hidden now. Yep, you can see that that's hidden. Because the customer is Greenleaf Technologies, we no longer have the end date showing. Now, if I go back and go into a different record, you can see this does show the end date because the customer name is something different. So basically, the logic is working the way that we want it to. So now let's see what happens when we deploy this into a different environment, in this case, our production environment. So what I'm going to do is just take the solution and deploy it off camera very quickly and then show you how that's working. Okay, so that took a while, but you didn't see that because it's all edited out. But I'm going to go into the app in production now. So I'm going to go into apps, contract delivery hub. That is not what I wanted. Oh my goodness, this one. And then let's test our business rules. So we'll come into project. As we mentioned, we've got cloud migration for Greenleaf Technologies. And would you look at that? It doesn't work the way that we want it to. The end date is still here, regardless of Greenleaf Technologies being here. Now you must be saying to yourself, something probably went wrong in deployment, but if I go into the solution, so solutions here, so if we actually come into our solution, so the contractor hub, and then we come into the project form, or actually the project table and then business rules, you can see that the business rule is in there. Now, if I click on this to edit it, the logic will be the exact same as it was in development. Now, this is going to take a nightmare, but as we can see here, the logic is the exact same as it was in the development environment. Okay, so what's gone wrong? So let me break it down for you. If I come into the project table in the production environment, and I've got my project here, so Greenleaf Technologies and Cloud Migration, and if I go to development, I've got the same project, right? So we've established that. Now, the issue and what's really going on here isn't with the project table, it's actually with the lookup specifically. So because we're driving the logic on the lookup, and by that I mean on the business rules, we've actually got a condition that says look at the Greenleaf Technologies lookup field, so the customer name. What it's actually looking at is if we go into the customer table and we see Greenleaf Technologies here, and we just type in the name of the table, which out of the box is account, it's actually looking at this GUID. But if we go into production and then we also open up the customer table, or here it's going to be called account. Sorry for that confusion. If you hear customer, it means account. And then we type in account here and to click on this, you can see that the GUID is different, right? So you can see we've got this starting with 1877. And if we go into the development environment, you can see for Greenleaf Technologies, it starts with 65. So this can't be changed and is randomly generated to differentiate your records within tables. And this goes for all of the tables across Dataverse and Dynamics. Now, the issue with our business rule here is when we've built it in development, what it's done is once we've clicked this lookup field, and you remember that view, and I'm actually going to show you here, so I'm going to deactivate this really quickly. Once we've clicked on this little icon here and it's brought up this really fancy view for us, when we click on a specific record here, what it's doing is it's actually looking for the GUID. So in this case, because we have the business rule, and let's say we're pointing it in this case at Greenleaf Technologies and select add, we're not saying look for the name literally. We're saying look for the GUID of the name, because that's just how Dynamics and Dataverse works. When we're looking for lookups to differentiate the lookups that we're finding, it will do it through the GUID. So when we've deployed this, we've actually deployed a solution which is looking for this GUID, but actually has this GUID. Now, there's a few ways we can solve this, and in terms of architecture, there's a few ways that you can actually build around this, but the best way that I've found is to use a formula column, right? And formula columns are basically lightweight columns that you can create and give you data within that column based on logic that you have. So let's say, for example, we have our project table, right? And that's where we actually run the business rules. So if I come into project and I want to add a column, so I'm just going to come into columns here, and we're going to select new column, and we're going to call this is Greenleaf, right? And this is just based on our logic. Obviously, you would adapt this based on the logic that you're trying to achieve and determine if this is the right thing for you to do. But if I come into data type formula, what I can actually do is take the lookup column living in the project table, which I think was called customer name. Yeah. All right, that's bugging. I'm gonna delete that. And then we can do dot name, so the actual customer name, equals, and then Greenleaf. And we want to write this completely the way it is within the table, so Greenleaf Technologies. And you can see what this is going to do is it's going to look into the lookup column, it's going to look into the customer name column of the customer table, and it's going to try and find Greenleaf Technologies. Now, if we just save this formula for what it is, we're going to get a really nice yes/no column to dictate if this is Greenleaf Technologies or not. So let me show you how that works. If I save this and then I come into project and then I look for that column that I just created is Greenleaf Tech, and we pull that here, what this is going to do is identify if these rows are Greenleaf Technologies, if that row is relating to Greenleaf Technologies. And you can see in this case it is, right? So you've got no for here, no for here, no for here. But for example, if I was to change this to Greenleaf and save, and then if I give this a refresh, you can see that that's been changed to Greenleaf Technologies as well. And the reason we're doing this is because we're no longer tying this logic to the GUID. We're tying it to this column, which will be the same in development as it is in production. So what we do now is we come into the business rule, and instead of driving it on the lookup field, we would drive it on if it's Greenleaf Technologies. So if I refresh this, and we just want access to that field now. So if I come into here, yep, we're on the project entity, but we want is Greenleaf Tech, and we want to say if it's Greenleaf Tech, so if this is yes, then the logic is true. So we can run the visibility logic the way that we want it to. We apply this, we click out, we activate, and it will work the same way as it would if we're looking on the lookup. So now if I come into my developer application, pull this forward, come into projects, remove this agent feed for now, we'll look into that in another video, and then open up Cloud Migration, give that a save, and now we can see, unfortunately, it is still not working, right? Even though we've published the business rule. And the reason it's not working is because I just remembered we actually have to add that reference column onto the form so it can actually register on the business rule. So let me just do that now. I'm going to come into my development solution. I'm going to come into project. I'm going to come into forms. I'm going to come into main. I'm going to take the is Greenleaf Tech reference field, drag it onto the form. And we don't want people to see this, so we're just going to hide this using the hide here. And then we're going to save and publish. And then now it should work. And there we go. So that's working the way that we want it to. And now when we deploy it across environments, it will also work in that way. Again, very niche problem, but if you do run into it, hopefully you'll be thankful that this video exists, as I would be to reference this if I ever struggle with this again. But if you found it useful, if you run into this issue, please leave a comment, leave a like. Let me know what you'd like to see next and any problems that you're struggling with, and we can address them. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully you can get this fixed now. Take it easy.